Live. It's been a while. Welcome. Just waiting on Brad. To bless us with this amazing conversation. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Brad. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I remember how to connect. There we go. Cool. Oh, it's Friday. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
We're live. My head's cut off. Let me go down a little bit. Hi, Tammy. Heart back at you. You guys, I'm excited to have this conversation tonight. This is a needed conversation. This is a conversation that many of us are having actually around self-awareness, whether it's about anti-racism work or whether it's about education or maybe it's stuff that's going on in our families, right? Um, Self-awareness is important, and so I'm excited to start this conversation with one of my good friends, Brad. Most of you in the industry know him by OB. But it's gonna be rich. You're gonna be kind of jumping into a conversation. Hey,
I don't know. I got kicked out. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, I literally was like, I have to wear a leather jacket or something because I know Brad is gonna Brad is gonna come with it, okay? Brad is about to be slick with some cheetah print leather.
Chill,
Brad,
man. Namdi, what's up, brother?
oh, what's
Both
up?
Namdis, my brother and my cousin.
Oh, that's what's up. Hi. Oh my God. So I knew,
Wow.
yeah, I knew that I had to come. I had to come correct. But Brad, thanks
You
so much.
yes, no, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks for thinking of me. I like I told you, I was just excited
Yeah,
to respond to that call, you know?
yeah. And you know, a lot of you who are going to tune in tonight, you're going to be able to listen to a conversation that is normal. You know, we have these conversations all the time, but it's the right time, right? And there's a difference. And so, okay, dropping
Right.
flags. I see you. Okay. So you know, we're gonna begin because you know Instagram gives us about what 40 minutes, and how my conversation works and how I talk is about an hour. So let's jump in, y'all. I want to start with
Sure.
a moment of silence because there's just been a lot that's been happening. 2020 happened, 2021. There's a lot of collective grief. You know, the trial that's going on with the murder of George
Right.
Floyd is happening right now. Hello, and you know we have to really talk about you know the grieving that's happening with the family. We have to acknowledge the collective grief of folks who lost you know a loved one from COVID-19. We lost over 500. Did you know this? We lost over 500,000 people due to COVID.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's so crazy
That's a
because
lot.
it sounds like a number, right?
Yeah.
But if you think
Mm-hmm.
about like a stadium or something like that, like that's a huge number. And so there's just a lot going on. You know, the humanity, passive humanity, you're wearing it, right? The
Right.
humanity,
Right. Humanity hats, man.
yeah, the humanity is disappearing, you guys. And so I think I just want to have a moment of silence. We lost DMX today, you know. One of the old princes died, 99 years old, lived a long life. And so let's just have 30 seconds of a moment of silence just to, you know, honor the collective grief that is going on right now. And you know, if you know me, then you know moment of silences are real. And it might get awkward for you if you're like, I don't know what this is. So just sit with it, close your eyes, just have a moment of silence to honor the collective grief. All right. Thank you,
Mm,
everyone. Thank you, Brad, for joining in the
for
moment of
sure.
silence on a live.
For sure.
Yeah. So you guys, welcome. Welcome to this conversation about self-awareness. Um, we're going to introduce ourselves in a second, and then we'll talk about why we're having this, and we'll jump into some questions. Hopefully, you all stick with us to the end. We'll be able to have a couple questions, live questions from you all, whatever you're thinking, any advice, any comments, anything you want to add from the conversation. So we'll have that. But I'll start off. I'm Rose Francois. I am the founder of A Rising Up, a racial justice online community on Instagram seeking to advance racial justice and making
Mm.
anti-racism a lifestyle. And so I'm also the author of A Generational Cry. I have chills. You know, I got our books next to me right now. A Generational Cry, based on the true story of the Haitian Revolution. We got Brad's book here. I'm going to pop it in again when I need to. Just really excited to be with you all because this is the work, right? This is a lifestyle. And so we have to continue these conversations with our friends, with our family, with folks we don't even know, right? So we can just spread the
Right.
word. And so that's me. Brad, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, O.B. Amaechi, Brad Amaechi, Ogma Amaechi, however you want to call me. Um, I'm an author. I'm also a designer, and last but not least, a social architect. If you're not aware of what a social architect is, it's basically just being in a room with a bunch of thought leaders and figuring out those difficult questions, those difficult ideas, and coming out with solutions. So I'm alongside what Rose is all about here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, didn't think of a social architect in that way. So thank you for sharing that. I
For
was like,
sure.
oh, that's what's up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, you guys, this is why we're here tonight. You know, the conversation about self awareness has been lingering around Rising Up, but also my personal page, Rose Francois, because part of one of the things I learned about the Haitian Revolution, if you know about it, which happened in 1804, is that the leader who was able to work with John Adams internationally,
Mm.
who was able to, you know, succeed in uniting thousands of armies that were divided, who was able to disrupt slavery, not only in modern day Haiti, but Dominican Republic, Toussaint Louverture,
Wow.
he practiced self-awareness, right? And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is learning from his life. And one of the things I learned that he did to sustain anti-slavery work was one of the things was self-awareness, right?
Mm.
And for us, that's important because if we want to know about this type of work, if we want to know how this impacts all the aspects of our lives, right? You know, it's important that we understand ourselves. It's important that we face
Right.
ourselves, you know? And
Yeah.
so I started thinking about, man, who is a good person to have this conversation with? And I just thought about Brad because one, Brad embodies vulnerability. Brad is the most humble person
Wow.
I know. I'm not just saying that. And also, you know, Brad wrote a
Thank you.
book. Yeah, you're welcome. Brad wrote a book, and he'll share more a little bit about it, which is the Intentional Five. And, you know, the Intentional Five has a lot, well, I'm not going to say all the things, but has has some key points for us to really be, you know, our best selves in this world. And one of the things I've noticed is a
Right.
trend is self-awareness. Like you can't be vulnerable without self-awareness, right? You can't evaluate yourself without self-awareness. You can't
Right.
really, you know, work with anyone without that. And frankly, you can't move forward. You can't be happy in a specific space, in my opinion, without really being aware of what's going on. And so that's why we're having this conversation.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. Did you want to add anything, Brad, before we jump into what self-awareness is?
Sure. Just a little bit about. I don't know if we were going to touch on a little bit about what VERGE represents or stands for.
I was gonna let you do that because you're the author.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so let's hold off for that. But
Okay. Okay.
I looked up the definition of self-awareness to kind of guide this
Right.
conversation, right? And I thought it was crazy because I never looked it up before, even though I understood what it meant in my own terms. And so I'm
Hmm.
going to read it. I'm a little bit of a nerd. So uh, self-awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Okay, walk with me
Mm.
here. The process can be painful. but leads to a greater self-awareness. And so I'm gonna say that one more time.
Please do.
Self-awareness is the consciousness of knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. The process can be painful, right? But it leads to a greater self-awareness, which means it's deep, which means our
Right.
self-awareness isn't just self-awareness. There's another level to self-awareness, right? And so this is why
Right.
we have to have these conversations. So with all of that, I know they want to hear from you, Brad. So let's jump in. So you wrote a book, right? And
Yes.
you wrote this book before me, and you actually inspired me. And I told you this to do a book launch like you did, right?
Oh wow. Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and you wrote this book, Brad, and I want to really be intentional about this, not just because it's
Hmm.
intentional five, right? But because this book has a lot of value for people on this live right now to understand what exactly you are bringing to the table for them, right? And I know it's a series too. So
Right.
the book about intentional five. Let's talk about like why did you write this book?
Mm.
One, okay, and I want you to think of like the story because the process of writing the book, Brad, is going to bring us to understand a little bit about your journey, right, with self awareness.
Right. Right. So you're gonna make me open up even
Sorry.
deeper about why I wrote this. No, this is great.
Okay.
So part of the reason that I wrote this book, of course, I got the idea to write the book while I was in education. So my time away from education, me exiting, just trying to do other things as far as my brand and what have you, I
Yeah.
needed more time. So I decided that I was going to step away from education. I didn't realize this was going to be a book, but hey, how you doing, Mom?
Oh my God, I love it. You guys, this is
So
so sweet.
so I didn't realize it was actually going to be a book, but I realized that I worked with so many different people in education. So I was a dean of culture for
Hmm.
an elementary school. I was a teacher. I was also a substitute at some point. I was a behavior intervention specialist, and I was a school climate advisor, which was more so of like a supervisor of the recreational staff.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of different roles in education, and I realized that there were people that ended up doing really well, and then there were other people who really struggled. And it
Yeah.
had nothing really to do with their tenure or, you know what I mean, like veteran teachers or not. It just had a lot to do with certain things within them, having an ability to adapt, be vulnerable, which I realized was a big challenge for those teachers that didn't quite get to that place, or the workers that didn't quite get to the place of connecting with students or connecting with their coworkers. It was a level of vulnerability that they didn't want to push through. And it was
Mm.
hard for me to explain that. You know what I
Wow.
mean? It was hard for me to really articulate that to somebody at the time because I didn't really have a name for it. I didn't really know what to call it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't till the last year when I was leaving my school out here in California, a beautiful school, Valor Academy. So it wasn't until I was leaving that school that I realized that this was going to become a book. So that
Wow.
basically came about because I had a document with all the things I was doing to support students. So I was writing down everything, and it was a tool that myself and the school social workers were doing all together because we wanted to figure out what what strategies are we using that's working. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I thought of a document. I said, hey, let's just put all the documents so we know what we're doing. We can collaborate and we can make it work that way. Lo and behold, I realized that I was the only one really writing anything in this document. So by
Oh
the end of the year,
wow.
it was just a document of different things that I've done. So, not to say every counselor struggled, but there were difficulties they were having with certain students that I was breaking through. And I'm just, my
Hmm.
mindset was we have the tools, we have everything, but we have to break in. Like, this document, I don't know if it was because I made it, you know, there could be
Yeah.
many things that go through people's minds. And I realized that this document, it reminded me of the power of being vulnerable, because I tried so many different things that I normally wouldn't. But in the light of getting through to students, in the light of connecting with students and being able to have that good relationship, even, you know, connecting with parents, bringing parents and doing things different ways, that still were good things that ended up working for students. Meditation, a lot of different things that I've tried just to
Wow.
see what would happen. So when I left, I knew I had to leave because I wanted to focus more on fashion. But that's where God came in and he stopped me and he let me know, like, look, I think that's a great thing. You're leaving. You want to push forward on what I've told you to do. You moved to LA for fashion, everything, what have you. But you need to write this book. And I didn't realize it. And I was just like, I need to write a book. Hated English. Didn't want to do anything with writing. And that's when I knew. And I, you know, just to make a long story short, to go back to what you're saying, I would say the reason why I wrote the book was because I noticed that there were a lot of people struggling, a lot of teachers struggling. When you're working with students that look like you know more than them, and
Yeah.
they're and also students they're a different race than you, so their culture is different. So you don't know
Mm.
how to connect with them. So
Right.
because you don't know how to connect with them, then that kid doesn't know what they're doing. Because I went to
Right.
college, I went to an Ivy League, and
Right.
there's no
Right.
way that
I'm
they could
wrong.
know more than me. Right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote it, because I wanted people to get back to a level of realizing that everybody is competent. Everybody has something to
Mm.
share. You know what I mean? If we come to that place.
Wow.
Mm.
Brad, you're leveling the playing field, right? That last
Right.
comment, like everybody is competent, gave me chills,
Right.
because some
Mm.
people actually believe that everybody is not competent. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? People are walking
Right.
around believing that. You know, but thank you for sharing, because it just shows me too, like the document served as a way for you to reflect back
Right. Right.
you were doing. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
You got
Wow.
that?
Yes. Yes.
And you
Definitely
know
self-awareness.
what's crazy to me, Brad, is that it started out with a team. Like everyone was supposed to put in, you know, learnings or whatever. But at the end of the day, you said, lo and behold, I was the only one, right? No one
Right.
stuck to it. Because what that tells me is that people didn't want to face themselves. They just wanted to say that, you know
Mm.
what? They're wrong. They need to get it together. They don't understand. They have an F. They need to learn, right? But you were like,
Right.
wait a minute. Let me just write down what's working, right? Let me just write
Right.
down what's working and what's not working. You know, let me just notice the fact that I'm able to reach and connect with folks that other people aren't. And it's not just because
Right.
we look alike, right? Because we both know that's
Right.
not it. I've had a
Right.
lot of students. Anyway, back to you.
No, so true.
Yeah.
So true. And in terms of like self-awareness, it's it's more of a feeling, and
Yeah.
I've hit that place one time where um, sometimes you know, in education you'll be hit with a difficult task. Like in my situation as a behavior interventionist or a dean of culture, you're always hit with most of the hit with the kids that are usually struggling the most,
Yeah.
whether it's behaviorally, academically. But you put them all in one room, and of course they're gonna assimilate to the environment. So if one person's acting up, then they're all trying to build. So it wasn't until one time, because, and part of it, I think it was being vulnerable, being consistent, and always meeting the kids there, despite how challenging, always meeting them there and having that belief that today they're actually going to change. So going through those
Mm.
practices, realizing that today is going to be the day to change, even if it was a tough day, a challenging day, still coming to them, looking at them as if today will be the day. You know what I mean? So just
Yeah.
believing in people, believing in the idea
Wow.
that it's more than just what is happening in the moment, but it's more so of how I'm reacting to these situations that's going to change how I flow and how I change my mood, instead of realizing that, no, I need to be who I am every day because that's what's necessary. So it wasn't until one day I went into the cafeteria. It was our like multi-purpose room, and usually I have the building the building personnel, head of HR. I have them. I fill out a form and have them sign up or sign up how I want the room set up. So usually I'll have chairs set up in the morning for the kids to come in. This particular day, it wasn't set up, and I had the most kids that were like, the kids, this was a day where there was like 40 or 50 kids in trouble. So they come in the morning, and we basically talk about what their day is going to be like and what have you. And I go in there, and there's no chair set up. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And if you're in education, you know that's already a problem, because kids have to go and get their chairs and bring them out. Just disaster ready to happen. So, so I basically just told a few kids, I said, hey, we're not going to have any chairs today. And this is another thing. These are middle school kids, like, and it's
Whoa.
like, all right, I need you guys to just sit in front of me. And they're like, sit on the ground. Usually that's the thing. Sit on the ground. I ain't going to sit on the ground. So I'm just like, well, we just going to have to make it work today. And it was a feeling, because when I did that, I was supported by some of the most challenging students. So me telling all of them to come in and sit on the ground and we'll just watch a video to discuss like how our day is going to go. It was very empowering for me to realize how it's really important to be self-aware, because in that moment I realized that the kids were growing, they were changing, they were understanding that it wasn't about just being a fool or acting up, but actually these are tools that can help them get through the day. Yeah. Because I sat in front of them, and any kid that was talking out, I didn't have to say anything. The kids that were the most ones that were most known to be like causing trouble, they were like, hey, be quiet, he's trying to explain something. And I was just like, what? It was a beautiful feeling.
Brad,
it was a beautiful feeling.
You know why I think that happened? Is because what you said before. You talked about believing in people, right?
Right.
And for those of you who are on the live now, you didn't hear the definition of self-awareness. Part of it was talking about feelings, knowledge, desires, right, and motives. And, you know, kids can feel that. Kids can feel if you're fake. If you don't really care about them, they're gonna stiff you out, right? Right. But they could sense that. And for you to believe in them every single day, despite how crazy they show up, like that says something to them. And whether you knew it or not, your ability to say, you know what, I'm just going to keep trying, like really shifted that conversation. So that's what's up. And, you know, we've been talking about this intentional 5, and I've been teetering around, right? But Brad, let's talk about it. Like, tell us. We know a little bit about the book, why you wrote the book, right? Tell us about the book. Tell us, what is the intentional 5? Sure.
That was a great segue. That was really good.
I used to be a reporter.
I was about to say, this girl ain't new, guys. She's not new. She's been doing this.
In the background, though. In the background. So
wow.
Yeah.
That was great. So the intentional 5, it's 5 values, 5 principles. I like to call them guidelines. But it's 5 principles to help you reach more success, whatever success may be in your journey, because it's not only for educators, it's not only for business tycoons or what have you, it's for everyone. And VERGE, that's the acronym for the intentional 5. And those intentional 5 would be: number 1, vulnerability; 2, experiences. I want to explain that a little bit. So experiences are more so of evaluating the different experiences you have in life. So we all are met with experiences that are kind of below us, like difficult things we went through in our life. And then we have those experiences where we sometimes wow ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We are like, wow, I can't even believe I did that. Or somebody would say something to us where it's like, wow, you think that of me? So it reminds us of the potential. So experiences is more focused on which experiences will you hold on to, the ones that are kind of below you or you've done that don't represent you, or that highest piece that you've done once. Because once you've done it once, that's evidence that you have it within you, and that means you can actually do that multiple times. So experiences, relationships, gratitude, and lastly, evaluation, self-evaluation, which also leads into self-awareness.
Wow. So, Brad, I know people on the call are probably like, I got to take notes, right? This is important. So just so you all know, it is a book. And so you can get the book, right? And I'm being cheeky just because, you know, you're my friend. I got to support you.
Appreciate that.
And Brad, like, this intentional five, you learned this from an experience that you've had. And for me, in my mind, I'm like, we all have crazy, excuse my French, like this isn't French, this is English, ass, right? Excuse
Yeah.
my language. But, we all have experienced really crazy situations, but not everyone has written about it,
Right. Right.
And so can you just walk us back to, so we know why you wrote the book, right? We understand what the intentional five is.
Mm-hmm.
But how, Brad? Like, how did you come up with these terms, right? How did you gather the trends, if you will? And I'm adding a little bit color to this question
Mm-hmm.
to get to the Verge,
Yeah. Man, like that's a really good question because honestly I think it was mostly had to do with being obedient, and with being obedient leaves you within the margins of what Verge is. You know what I mean? So being obedient,
Mm.
I was able to gain support. So for an example, that acronym Verge came from my cousin in the UK. Like
Wow.
I talked to him about some values that I had, and because he's an artist, like he's a rapper, he was like, "Hold on, I think I got something." He went back, came back, and kind of like was like, "Hey, we actually, I think it was like 2 or 3 sessions. We went back and forth. We had different words, and then finally, Verge was what it was. And if I
Wow.
wasn't open enough to work and collaborate and take his opinion or take his idea, realizing that that idea was actually for me, you know what I mean? If I was in
Yeah.
myself and
Yeah.
saying, no, this is my book, this is all me,
Right.
I would have probably had a different acronym, like
Wow. That's
Regal.
crazy.
I don't know. It could have been something else.
Oh
Who
God.
knows?
Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. You got it.
Right,
Oh, you know what's so
right.
crazy to me? I noticed something. You allowed, I don't know, a little bit more of the relationships piece, right? But that relationship, right?
Yes, yes,
Oh my God, Brad, I have chills. You've been
right.
embodying your book. You had to live out your book, right? And so in
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
very moment where you got the acronym, right, from
Hmm.
your cousin in the UK, like, and he said, "Hey, here's this thing for your book. I know you're writing." Some people would be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, bro, whatever, right? Here's the information."
Right.
But you were open enough to hear that advice. You guys, how many times do we, just hear advice from people and we just sort of like brush it off, right? Like, that is just so powerful to me because you
Yo.
actually followed through. You freaking published a book with the idea that was for you, but it didn't come from your head, Brad. It came from your cousin's head. That trips me
Right.
out. It's trippy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to say another thing that to that point that you just said, which is a marvelous point. I'm a type of person, and I think this is what some people fail to do. And this would be a great tip if you guys are taking notes. This would be a great tip right here. Um, what I tend to do is there's people that I trust. There's people I believe. Um, and if somebody is going to take the time to tell me something about what I'm doing or what have you, the very least I'm going to do is listen to what they're saying, especially if it's somebody that I consider someone of value. If God puts somebody in my life that's of value and they come and share something with me, who am I to refuse that information? You know what I mean? Who am I to say,
Mm,
like, nah, I'm just going to do it my way? No.
wow.
If someone's going to take the time to share something with you, there's a reason for that. I believe there's a reason for it. And a lot of us get stuck in our own ways of thinking, saying, no, I want to do it my way. But sometimes your way isn't the right way, and you needed to hear something to evolve you. So I'm very open to listening to people that actually share things with me. Now, of course, I think that's what comes with my the last acronym, E, for evaluation. So there's certain things people can say, and I'll evaluate what they're saying, and I can also evaluate, are they saying this because they're upset? Are they in themselves? Or are they saying this genuinely because they want to support? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Either way, that whole level of evaluation will allow you to know what pieces of what people can say you take and what pieces remain in the clouds. And I'm not mad at them. They could say, yo, your book sucks, and this is why. 10 reasons why your book sucks. And then it makes me process, is there something between me and him that they're not feeling? Does my book touch a spot? So it gives me a whole idea of, let me really sit and
Wow.
evaluate this. So instead of being upset, I'll stop, take a minute, and really think about, why are they sharing this with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. And you know, that takes, you know, a level of vulnerability, right? But also, I'm going back to the definition of self-awareness, right? The first thing was knowledge. And so
Right.
you are accepting knowledge from others. And it also doesn't sound like you're accepting everything, right? From
Right.
anybody. You're accepting from
Mm-hmm.
people you trust, who's in your life, who is adding value, right? It's a mutual relationship, and
Right.
you're listening. And that's powerful because, you know, there's a lot of us, we're walking around struggling in certain areas because we just didn't take advice, right?
Right.
We didn't want
Right.
to face ourselves because, you know, when we heard this advice or we heard something that made us face ourselves, right, become self-aware, it was
Mm.
painful, right? But if we remember that self-awareness, it can be painful, and that's okay,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so if someone is telling me 10 reasons why I didn't do well or 10 reasons why my book sucks, yo, that hurts, okay?
Mm.
It took like 3
Mm-hmm.
years, right? Like you put in some work, and for someone to take
Right.
their time to counter that, it does hurt. But for you to turn around and say, you know what, that sucks, but let me try to let me just assess this. Let me
Mm-hmm.
evaluate the situation, because out of this situation, I want to learn something. Like
Right.
that's a
Right.
whole nother level, Brad, that everybody can't do, right? Not
Mm.
at the same time anyway. And so I commend you for
Thank
that,
you.
because what I'm starting to see here in this conversation, and this wasn't planned, right? Like you
Mm-mm.
literally showed examples of the knowledge piece, right? Like I'll go the Verge way, the vulnerability piece,
Right.
right? For me,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
evaluation, right? Relationships, right? And it's just so interesting to me because I think I don't know if you like intentionally. This is so funny. Intentional five. I'm not. I'm not saying it. I swear to God. I don't know if you like intentionally like plan it this way, but it appears to me that you are the book, and so it's very very cool to
Mm.
experience you right
Wow.
now. You are the book, Brad, and it's very interesting
You getting deep
because
on me, man.
no, I'm gonna be a little cheesy right
Okay.
now and say like I have gratitude, right? Like I have this little thing right here, you guys, and it has
Ah, right.
all the intentional five here. But really though, like you have this vibe of the Verge, you know?
Wow.
Um, and so with all of that knowledge, right? With all of the
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability, with all of the evaluation, relationships, the gratitude, etc., like experiences, I want you to give us advice. And when I
Sure.
say us, I mean a specific example. What would you say to someone who's walking around who wants to really move forward in a specific area in their life, aka they want to be self-aware in that area, right? But they're scared. They don't know how to. And also they're afraid to be hurt. What would you say to them?
So, I think that's the thing about vulnerability that's really, really important. Is being able. Here's another thing, and I know that one thing I learned from you is words are very important, and
Hmm.
um, I'm learning to share that words are very important. And sometimes what culture defines words as is what we internalize it as rather than what it actually really means. So for vulnerability,
Wow.
the definition of that is the possibility of getting hurt. But what does that also mean? It also means a possibility of not getting hurt. So if we kind of really look at it for what it really
Oh my
means, what it
gosh.
really
Yeah.
stands for, then we'll realize that, okay, so if I don't get hurt, then what can happen? So if one is getting hurt, then the other one got to be being helped, being lifted up. It's something even greater. But you would never
Wow.
know if you don't realize that you got to unlock that. You know what I mean? And unlocking that isn't for anybody else but for yourself, because at the end of the day, vulnerability, I think, is meant for us to become more of who we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow.
Here's a quick thought on just how we're created. Me, I believe we're created in the womb. God put a spirit in us before we were even in the womb. So he put his purpose in us before we were even born. So a lot of people say, well, when I grow, I can't, I'm not meant to change or what have you. And I'm not thinking, forget even changing. I'm talking about evolving. So when God has created us, we were babies. Before even babies, we were fetuses.
Yeah.
And he put a purpose in us before that. Now, as we grow, before we even could have the sense of smell, taste, anything, our five senses, right?
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Before we had sense of our five senses, we had purpose. So that comes before. So there's an order. So because we had purpose before we had our five senses, a lot of us are doing it wrong. A lot of us will see billboards. You know what I mean? We'll see billboards of how we're supposed to look, and we'll get fixed on, well, I need to be like this, rather than thinking about what was your purpose in life. Was it to be like what you see, or are you supposed to use your eyes to generate things that are aligned to your purpose? You know what I mean? So those senses are meant to complement your purpose. So it looks different for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is so powerful. It's almost like the idea of the chicken and the egg, right? Like what comes first? And so if you see life with your senses first and then purpose, that's trippy because your purpose is going to change based on your senses, right? Like what I see, what I feel, what I smell, what I taste, all the things, right? We know what the things are.
Right. No, yeah. Right.
But if you, like you just said, if you align your purpose, like what you're created for, like what you're drawn to, what you're passionate about, like what what frustrates you, right? For me, it's racism. That frustrates the hell out of me, right? And so I'm working anti-racism. But your purpose and then your senses, you can lead. And that's just like, wow. Thank you, Brad. Wow.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that person who's wandering and who's like, I'm afraid, all they have to do is just kind of find their purpose.
And I go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say the rest will take care of itself, right?
And as you're finding your purpose, just ask yourself easy and hard questions. Just ask yourself the questions like, man, what am I really like? Really ask yourself these questions. Nobody is going to judge you for talking to yourself because no one's going to see you. You're only doing that anyway to get a better reflection. For me, it's talking to God because I know that God's listening and he's going to guide me. So whoever you are, I would say use that ability to recognize that, you know what I mean? You have to start from somewhere. If you don't start from somewhere, then nothing's going to happen. Even any living thing, you know what I'm saying? Like if you think about an acorn, or matter of fact, let's use a different example. Let's think about a plant. It had to start from somewhere, right? So even with a plant, it gravitates toward what is going to help it, what's going to support it. You can see plants, and if the sunlight's there, it's going to lean toward the sunlight. That's because it's a living thing. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to we're meant to be purposeful. You know what I mean? And a plant is meant to grow. So it's going to go toward what's going to help it be its best. So ask those questions and realize, am I around people that are helping me grow? Because if not, maybe you should move your circle. As you move your circle, then you'll be more vulnerable to do things because you're not worried about those, the stimuli around you that's actually going against you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so true. And a lot of us are in spaces where we can't be vulnerable, and so we're walking around not being aware.
Right.
And so that self-awareness and all the aspects of our life, does open up some wounds here if we haven't really addressed it, right? And so that vulnerability and the people around you really impact that ability for you to show up in that way. So thank you for saying that.
For sure.
Wow. So I, am very aware of Instagram. And it's time. Someone said it extended, but I was cut off 3 times in some lives, so I don't.
Oh wow!
I don't trust.
Wow.
So you guys, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Nothing, there's no crazy questions, so feel free to put in the chat. We'll also share how you can get Brad's book, The Verge, how you can hear more from Brad. Please follow him. I'm
for
calling you Brad,
sure.
but Brad, please tell them your Instagram name, please.
OB underscore connected. So yeah, feel free to connect with me up there. Let's continue to build.
Yeah. So, the other thing too, Brad, as people are thinking of questions, maybe, is, like, man, like, people aren't honest or real anymore. Like what we're
Mm,
doing and what we're talking about is so important. It's not just about Instagram and trying to get people to buy books or whatever. Like it's about we really care. Like
right,
we really
right.
care. Like for you to not only be the only one to take notes about what's happening with your students and to compare that with people who are as successful for over a year and then to turn around and write a book about it, like that shows that you're doing the work, right? And
Mm,
so this
mhm.
concept of like really one identifying you, right, reflecting yourself, it impacts the world.
Wow.
And so if you
Yeah.
have not gathered the value of you doing the work, of you facing yourself, right, in all the aspects of your life, if you have not understood the magnitude of the experience of Brad's conversation here and how, working as a dean and working in behavioral, like you worked in some situations where kids were rude and cussing in your face. I'm sure they try to hit you, right? And
Right.
so if you
Right.
haven't understood the
Oh yeah.
magnitude, oh God, I have memories of myself, not you. But anyway, if you haven't understood, like, the level of impact that
Hmm.
happens when we, when I say we, I mean you as in all of us, do the work, then let me say it for you. When we are able to identify what is going on in our lives, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally,
Mm,
intellectually, when we
right.
do the work ourselves, you guys, it impacts our families, it impacts our friends, it impacts our coworkers, our workplaces, our romantic or intimate relationships, our children.
Right.
Like it literally impacts, it's like a ripple effect. It's like water, right? It's like water. It's like
Yeah.
water. Because Brad, if you did not do what you did, that whole process that you were going through, I don't think you even realized it, Brad.
At the time, no,
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not. I did not. Man, this document was almost trash until, God put that thought in me to realize that I need to write it. Like, I didn't want to write a book. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't. Like,
Wow.
that wasn't I didn't think that was my story, but I had to be self-aware and say, something's telling me to do this right now. Like, I guarantee you, Rose, I've never had a thought about writing anything more than like rap bars on a paper. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
That's
about it.
real.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was that was back in the day. It was like that's not coming back, or writing a hook. But that was about it. I see a question too.
You do? Okay. I'm like, where the questions
Yeah.
at? Oh, I'm like way behind. Hey guys. Okay, you have a question. Do pair. Okay. What's up? So I'm trying to figure out. So I have a question. Did you have moments of self-doubt? This is good. In the process of writing this book, and how did you
um,
push through that and get it done? Preach. Okay, I'm sorry. I feel this. Go ahead,
yeah.
Brad. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah. Wow. Um, yeah. I had moments. I had moments of self doubt. Honestly, I really had to take time. So I think I was really, really patient with myself, and I actually had a dry spell where I couldn't write anything, um, and I didn't understand why. I was like, "What's going on?" Like I had everything, and I just couldn't write anything. Um, and that was actually when I gave my book, what I had so far. I gave it to somebody, a friend of mine, Jane. I gave it to her to do a quick proofread, and she changed everything about the book for me. She would, and she changed it by saying one thing.
Wow.
She just misunderstood something. She's like, "Well, you said you were helping the students that were struggling. What about the students that are actually excelling, how do they connect? And I was like, So I thought about that, and naturally, the way I was processing, those kids were just included, but it wasn't clear in my writing. So I realized
Wow.
that I can't just write a book that was a model for schools on how to implement things because they may miss that piece. So rather than create a book that would have been more so of a guide, like a guide to get kids to do well or what have you, I had to make it more of I had to make it more of a book soaked in my experience as well and kind of just my narrative. So I had to make it more of like a memoir in a sense, but still having those elements of things that I've done, which ended up being a lot to do with your insides. It had nothing to do with
Wow.
do A, B, C, or what have you, but that's what really shifted things. So to answer your question, there was a lot of self-doubt right there because I was pretty much done with the book and I had to start over. So to start over, I was like, can I really do this again? Can I really like write this book that I'm thinking of? And even in the midst of that, I think what has helped me when I had those dry spells was going to different places. Like me, I think I found out what would help me thrive. Going to cafe lounges or like bars or whatever, like book bars that had like trees and nature. That
Yeah.
really helped. So it's being able to find out what's going to make you write more. Like what environment is going to make you continue on. And I think that's what helped me push through is realizing that this is not only for me, but this is something that other people need to read. So I need to find the environments that are going to keep me going.
Wow. That's powerful. You know, what I heard from that, Brad, is that you listened, to the advice from the person who shared with you, right? And
Yeah.
maybe it was just her asking a question, but you
It
took the
was just a
time.
question. I just wanted to be clear. She didn't say change nothing. She just asked the question, and I was like, yo, okay. Like, I don't even think she knew.
Wow. Thank you, Jane. Like, it takes a level of just presence and also like intentionality to just not just like answer the question, but let's just listen to the question. Ooh, that
Right.
was deep. That
Right.
was, how you
Yo.
say something and like
That was. That was deep.
listen to the
Right.
question. Oh my God. Because what she was really saying was that there's something missing here. Right. Um, and that gives me chills. And the other thing too is just like the environment, right?
Mm.
And it almost seems as if you were focused on the external, like what you accomplished, the results and the who, right? But then
Right.
she turned you inward a little bit, just thinking more about what wasn't said. Like, these folks are top performers.
Right.
What's going on
How are
with
they in the
them?
mix? Yeah. Yeah. How are they
Yeah.
included? Because your book's about this, but what about them? And I'm like, I'm thinking about them, but it's not showing.
Yeah.
So I had to scrap it. I realized that there are so many different how-to books for educators on how classroom management, da 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 da, but it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't really,
Wow. Woo.
it doesn't really have a,
Yeah.
now it's your time to think about these things in your personal life. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to be able to do these things? Have you healed yet? The way you were brought up in your, in your subculture, does that allow you to listen to a kid that's telling you, I didn't eat, I'm not going to do no work? Do you understand that? Like, do you really get it? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I had to say, like, yeah, I need to do something a little bit. I need to start over.
Yeah.
And that was it. Yeah.
Wow. And
How
that's
about for you, Rose?
for me, to answer the same question, for me,
Yeah.
I quit a lot. From idea to conception for my book, it took 10 years. I quit a lot, and what really kept me going was believing in myself and realizing
Mm,
that I was the book, right? There was a
wow.
period when I walked away, and my editor said something I will never forget. She said, close your eyes. I said, I'm on the phone, it's COVID. I know I got that. She said, close your eyes, Rose. I'm on the phone. I'm like, okay, right? Like, and
Yeah.
she says, look at the image right now. I said, what image? She was like, there's a bench, and on the bench, your characters are there, and they're sitting down and they're waving at you and they're saying, Rose, whenever you're ready, whenever you're ready. And I will never forget that, Brad. I had chills because I said, wow, they're alive because they're in my head, you know? It's that internal work. And so, you know, do pair, like if you're writing a book or whoever, like if you're trying to do something, you know, I'm convinced that it's not about the stuff outside of us, right? It's not about the external stuff that we're trying to do. You know, we have a degree, check. We get the job, check. And I'm actually using this example for one of my best friends, my sister, right? I called my sister, Dr. E.C. Fisher, get her book. I'm going to grab it in a second. It's behind me.
Yeah.
The Power Within Me, right? The Road Back to the Real You. It's powerful because it's these external things we want to check off, right? But what we're not doing, you guys, is we're not doing the internal work. And that's actually going to bust out everything and make it shine brighter than we really need to. And that's what really helped me, because I didn't realize that I needed to get myself together before I got this out. And so if that helps you, you know, just look at yourself like a whole person. How are you doing, right? How are you feeding yourself mentally? Write that down. How are you feeding yourself emotionally, right? How are you feeding yourself spiritually, intellectually, physically? Not just like, how are you doing this, but what does the daily practice look like? What does the monthly practice look like? What does the weekly practice look like? Right? So every day, my emotions, right? I know I need a journal every day. I got a journal. It's going to be all in my head. I'm a writer, right? You know, spiritually, I got to pray in the morning. I wake up. I got to be in music. I got to get in whatever I need to, worship, right? Physically, if I don't work out, I feel like a freaking blob, like a grease bomb, okay? I'm just giving you some examples. Mentally, right? The devil's a lie, Brad. I'm going to see your face in a second.
What? Hey, there we go.
I can't with this live. But just giving you guys some examples of just like, it's the internal work, you know? The internal work got Brad to, you know, accomplish this book and really blessing us with the Verge. And this conversation of self-awareness is really about doing the internal work.
Yeah. And even you sharing what you're sharing now, it shows that you had to. So we're all conduits of what we're saying as far as being vulnerable. Like, you facing yourself is vulnerability. Like the only thing you get out of facing yourself is more of yourself. It's more of yourself.
Wait, Brad. Say that one more time. For the people in the back on the call, say that one more time.
The only thing you get for facing yourself is more of yourself. And why wouldn't you want that? Like, all you want is that. You just don't know that's what you want.
Brad, I know you're going to be like, really, Rose? Say it one more time. I swear to God. And then I'm going to read this, and you're going to go crazy. Say that one more time. You guys? I can't. Oh, okay, Brad, say it. Say it one more time, Brad.
The only thing... Hold on. How did
I can't remember.
The only thing you... Well, if y'all heard it, y'all heard it. You didn't hear it? Hopefully this is recorded. But...
You said...
Dang.
The only thing you get by facing yourself is more of yourself.
More of yourself.
Now, I asked you to say that.
I need to write that down.
Please write that. That's a tweet. So
yeah.
The reason why I asked you to say that again is because in the beginning we talked about the definition of self-awareness, y'all. The definition here is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. The process can be painful, but it leads to a greater self-awareness.
Right.
And so I'm convinced. Greater. So I'm convinced that if we continue to seek this path of self-awareness, you guys, of asking ourselves the hard question, getting uncomfortable, you know, and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, like we're going to start not just impacting ourselves, but the ripple effect, the water, right, that we talked about earlier. It's going to change the world. if you have one more
Absolutely.
question.
Sure.
So I have another question. Is there such a thing as being too self-aware? Ooh, aware of your flaws and shortcomings to the point that it's crippling and self-defeating? That's a great question.
Mm, it's a beautiful question, man. Yeah. Of course, I think if if we get to the point of over analyzing, now we're moving from self-evaluation and self-awareness to judging. And when we start
Mm,
to judge ourselves, we're doing more than we ought to. In the scripture, God talks about don't think higher than yourself. And I think when we take on the role of saying, let me judge myself in different ways, or this is the same thing as also judging other people. Because if you judge other people, it's the same as if you're judging yourself. Both of those should
yeah.
never happen. So if that continues, you have to then realize, well, you then have to self-assess and say, why am I judging myself so hard? Why am I not just taking the steps to actualize? Why am I in this space where now I'm just stunning myself? And part of that is because we're taking on the role of God. And unfortunately,
Wow.
we're not God. You know what I mean? We are not the mind of God. We have our own mind and we have our universe in front of us, but we did not create this universe. Because we didn't create this universe, we have no right to judge anyone but
Yeah.
ourselves. You know what I mean? That only is an impossible task to do. So all we do is end up hurting ourselves because we're trying to do something that's impossible and can't understand why we can't, why we're getting these poor results. It's because we're doing things that we're not supposed to do in humanity. That wasn't part of our DNA to do that.
That is
You know what I
so,
mean?
that is extremely powerful, Brad. Wow.
Hmm.
I didn't even think of it that way. Wow.
Yeah.
When we try to be like God, it's almost like we go into judgment, right? Which is crazy.
Right.
But because our brains can't function, the next thing, like our ways aren't His ways.
Right.
Wow. Someone said,
Right.
"Wow, that us true." I feel that. I feel that comment.
And if you go back to Genesis, he said, have dominion over things of the earth. He didn't say over each other or
Right.
yourself, right?
Woo!
He said over the things of the earth,
Oh
everything
my
of the
God.
earth. He didn't say judge another man because we are like each other. He didn't say judge yourself, but the things, we're not even just supposed to look at ourselves that hard. We evaluate what we have around us according to our purpose. This brings us back to the five senses. We use those to evaluate everything around us to actualize that purpose within us.
Right. Wow, you guys. So you heard it live. Brad is amazing. There's so much to offer, in this book, The Intentional Five, The Verge.
Mm.
As we're closing, if you have more questions or you want to know more, OB is it underscore connected.
Yes,
Uh,
perfect.
yep. Please follow, Brad, and please get the book. Brad, where can we get the book? Please tell us.
You can get the book at www.wakeupthesoul.com. So that's wakeupthesoul.com. So www.wakeupthesoul.com. Get your hardcover book. Hopefully it blesses your life. That's my goal. So if it doesn't, let me know and I'll give you a refund. All right? Nah, not really. But
I was like, for real?
give it to a friend. Maybe it'll bless them. But or just come back to you. You just ain't ready yet. So.
That's real. That's real though. And we'll be real with you with some tough love, okay? But
Yes.
y'all, this was amazing. I honestly I have chills and I want to continue conversations, but I'm weary of the Instagram live that cut us off. And so, for everyone on the call, thank you. Brad,
Thank you guys all.
is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Of course. Just want to thank my mom for being on this call.
Woo-hoo!
Appreciate you. Because I would have heard it after too if I didn't say her name or something. She's like, oh, so you didn't know I was just kidding. But no, I want to thank my mother for sure. Appreciate you being here. I want to thank Rose for giving me this space to share. I think we had a conversation a little earlier.
Yeah.
This is what I'm soaked in. This is what I love to do. And just to create the stage and to think of me. I'm just grateful, and I'm really thankful as well.
Yeah, and we can do this again. It could be, who knows, another series. Let's talk about each
For
part. Who
sure.
knows? Whatever you guys want. But
I'm
thank you.
here. I'm around.
All right. Well, y'all heard it. All right, Brad. I'm so excited. I bought 10 of your
Thank you.
books. Okay. Oh, Maisie_07. You missed it. But check it out on Instagram live on a Rising Up, you guys. Love you guys. Have a good night. They're so
Peace.
blown away, Brad. They're so blown away. They're like, I don't want. Ooh. You see, I'm blown away.
Have
I knew that was gonna happen, but no. Thank you, all. See you
a good one.
later. Great conversation.
Peace.